Hey everybody, Andy Kvernen here with another Cornerstone Connection Daily Devotional. This past summer, I had the privilege of traveling in the Middle East and found myself in a remote town out sort of in the middle of nowhere in a beautiful mountain area. And here we were in the town meeting people, and we came across a man who's a part of a very specific sect within his religion that emphasizes consistent prayer. And of course, that's admirable. Last Sunday, we talked about the importance of having organic and rhythmic prayer patterns in our lives. We looked at people like Daniel and Jesus in the early church, and we understood that there was both organic responses to God given current situations or circumstances, but there was also rhythmic patterns where there was consistency in coming to God every day, and that was really admirable. And we challenge each other to develop those prayer habits. I wonder, how are you doing on that? What'd you write down on your bulletin, on your outline, and what is the Lord giving you to develop in your prayer life this week? Well, this man, one of the things that was unique about the specific group that he was with is that they would go to pray 5 times a day, but then they would go one more time. And this time, I think, was about an hour from what I understood. And they would go and they would simply recite kind of in cant some of the same phrases over and over and over. And the desire was to grow more closer to God spiritually, to by just almost mindlessly repeating the same phrase. And it almost became like a mumbling, almost became like a rote thing that they did. And of course, I didn't see them do that specifically. I saw other prayers, but not that one specifically. And again, I admire the desire to be close to God spiritually, but it reminds me of a passage today that I want to bring us to from Matthew chapter 6. And here Jesus is preparing to teach on prayer. And he says this in verse 7. He says, "And when you pray, do not keep on babbling like pagans, for they think they will be heard because of their many words. Do not be like them, for your Father knows what you need before you ask Him." Now, we're called to come to God in prayer, organically and rhythmically, and we're called to have this sort of pattern that's repeatable in our lives. And yet, Jesus is very clear. God isn't impressed by us simply coming to Him and babbling, coming to Him and going through the motions, just checking things off a box day after day. No, God desires relationship with us. That's why Jesus says, look, your Father knows what you need before you ask Him. The point is not that you conjure up the requirement for God to respond to your prayers. No, the goal is to develop a relationship and to live in that relationship. And then, of course, Jesus teaches us how to do that with the Lord's Prayer. We're going to have a sermon on that here this coming Sunday. Looking forward to it. But friends, here's the thing. Praise God, we don't have to impress God with our big words or with our empty words. What we can do is we can come to God as a child comes to a father, and we can have a conversation with Him. And that's the kind of conversation that God invites. How are you talking to God today? Have you talked to Him? Have you spent time with Him? Have you invited Him to speak to you? Have you opened His Word, letting Him do just that? Friends, let's invite God to have a conversation with us. And in fact, He's the one who's invited us first. He's our Father. And so I read this again. When you pray, do not keep on babbling like pagans, for they think they will be heard because of their many words. Persistence doesn't mean just babbling before God, doesn't mean just repeating the same thing over and over and over. It's the reality that we have a Father. And verse 8, do not be like them, for your Father knows what you need before you ask Him. Praise God. We have a Father on the other end of the line, listening to us, interacting with us, seeking what's best for Himself and His glory, but also for us, because those two things aren't mutually exclusive. Friends, pray to your Father today. You don't keep babbling. Just talk to Him. Have a great conversation with Him. And God bless you. And Lord willing, we'll see you again soon on the Cornerstone Connection Daily Devotional.